Welcome back to Movie Idol. So in this video, I want to talk about Rick Grimes, only because we haven't really talked about him as he's going to relate to the story really that much since his death. We've referenced certain things, referenced how our characters are feeling, how they're dealing with his death, and talked about the Rick Grimes movies and that radio thing, but I want to talk about how he's really going to affect season 10 and season 11, because he really was present. Like, his presence was felt throughout all of season 9. After he left in episode 5, he was still there up until the finale, and you felt him all the way throughout. Because the one thing I think Angela Kang is doing really well right now is she is still keeping Rick Grimes a part of the story. Now, I don't know what that's going to mean for season 12 and 13, and we'll talk about that closer to the end of this video, but season 9, with the idea of him being dead and just how that affects our characters, it really did serve as an important plot device, and I think in season 10, the revelation of him being alive and how that makes our characters feel, having Daryl just so over the moon happy, Judith being so happy that her father's alive, what that could do for the rest of the season, and I guess kind of partly season 11, I think could be really amazing, honestly. If Michonne leaves, say like in the mid-season finale of season 10, or in episode 7 of season 10, or episode 10 of season 10, say a few episodes afterwards, or say it's the season 11 premiere, we can have a scene between Judith and Daryl where they're talking about Rick and they're like, well, what do you think he's going to be like? Judith can be like, do you think my mom's going to bring him home? Daryl will be unsure, but they're going to have a lot of hope. Daryl will say, we thought he was gone the entire time. The fact that he's actually still out there and alive, that says a lot. I think he will come back. Rick is alive. And I think just the revelation of that, it's giving me goosebumps right now, just thinking about that, with Daryl specifically. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because, I don't know. I love Daryl as a character. Maybe it's because of their relationship. I keep thinking back to the season 4 finale when Rick looked at Daryl and was like, you're my brother, Daryl. That scene there, that I want something like that in the second half of season 10, or just whenever Daryl finds out that Rick's alive. That moment that news breaks to him, he's going to be so happy, and just to know that Rick is still out there in this current timeline. I think there's so much that they can do with that. But before we jump in and discuss all the possibilities and discuss how Rick will affect season 10, I do have to warn you for spoilers for all of season 9. And I guess where I want to start with this is in saying that Rick really played a vital role in season 9, even after he was gone. The first 5 episodes really was about the last 8 seasons and what Rick was trying to do to build to the story that we're at right now in this new world. If you think about what Rick was fighting for with the Saviors, he wanted that bridge. He wanted that bridge to be built. He wanted to help everybody out. He had this idea of what the world could be like, and he wanted to execute that, and no one really saw what he was doing. I think Michonne saw it, a few other characters saw it, but Daryl, Maggie, a lot of other characters just didn't really like what he was doing. They hated the Saviors. They just wanted them gone. Rick's apparent death, or his final episode and his transition to these movies, I think also what that story entails was, or I guess not entails, but I think what it finished was Rick's story from the very beginning, because in the very beginning, Rick was all about Carl and Lori, right? He wanted to keep his family alive. That was the main thing. In the pilot episode, that was his main motivation. He wanted his family to be alive. Now, fast forward to season 8, and he had most of his family alive. Carl died, which was, really, really huge. But building up to that moment, he got this new family. He had Daryl, Michonne, he had all these people, Judith now, right? He has this whole other family now. It doesn't have to be blood. There's a reason why the fan base is called the Walking Dead family. Everyone's just family. And on the show, that group from Atlanta and all the people they got from then, they're all a family. But when you take Rick's original origin, which was Carl and Lori, and the fact that Carl died in season 8 and Lori obviously in season 3, that was an ending. That was a huge ending to Rick's story, at least to this first part of his story. And when you take these first 5 episodes of season 9, it really was just the aftermath of that and what Rick's going to do with that now. And he really did just fight for the future. That was sort of his last, his last big push in life. That's why everyone thought he was going to die, because he really wasn't anything after Carl's death. If you think about it, after Carl died, he just wanted to finish this war. He wanted to fight for freedom, which he did. And after he tried to fight for Carl's vision, it was always about Carl. And that's why everyone kept thinking, well, he's going to die or something's going to happen with that. But no, that just ended right there. And now he's in these movies and he's been missing for 6 years, doing something entirely different. Now, I'm sure Carl is still very much a part of who he is right now, but he's in a different story. He's in a different place in the world. Everyone around him is a stranger besides maybe Jadis, maybe Heath if Heath is there. Maybe some of the Fear characters, because they could be there as well. Like, remember, season 5 is going to have some Rick Grimes movie tie-ins. Some of those characters could go over there. Maybe Morgan goes there. Like, it could really go either way. The point is, where Rick is going and what he's been up to for the last 6 years, he's a different person. I mean, obviously, in a lot of ways, he's going to be similar, but he knows more people now. Like, there's probably people in these Rick Grimes movies that if he ever comes back to Alexandria, he's going to take back with him, right? People that he's going to be very, very close with, because just think about it, and this might like shock you guys, but he knew Daryl for what, 4 years? I think from season 1 up until when he left was roughly 4 years, right? It was like 2.5 years from season 1 all the way to the end of All Out War. There was a 1.5 year time jump or whatnot. So it was like roughly 4 years, because I know it's like Judith is 10. So we just had a 6-year time jump after he left. So yeah, like roughly 4 years, right? Wherever Rick went, if Rick is with Jadis right now and Jadis didn't die and she survived for the last, 6 years, he's known Jadis way longer than he's ever known Daryl, or he's spent a lot more time with her, or with, any new character. He could be much closer with any of these newer characters than with like Daryl or Michonne, which is just so insane to think about. What happens next between Rick and Michonne? What if Rick found a new love interest in these movies? I doubt it. I think he's still, he wants Michonne. Obviously, Michonne's like the love of his life, and I doubt that would happen, but they could easily introduce a narrative where Jadis, to cover up her own self, she's gonna lie to Rick and be like, well, I had to save you from this bridge because it was like overrun or this and that, and some people died. Maybe there's a case of like amnesia. I mean, I'm just really just like saying a bunch of random shit right now, but there's going to be elements like that to Rick. There's going to be elements to the story that's going to be very different, and when Rick and Michonne reunite for the first time in these movies, I think there's going to be a part where they're just so thankful to see each other, but there's going to be something different. At least I hope there would be, because it's been a very long time. I think for Michonne, we know where her head's at right now. And I think if she saw Rick, she's just going to hug him, cry, and she's just going to be so happy. But it would be too predictable, I think, if Rick just was just like, happy to, and, they were just together and just happy to be with each other. I would like something different about it. Like, I don't know how I feel about the whole amnesia thing. That probably seems like the most logical, just because of what happened to him on that bridge, that maybe he lost some kind of memory of just something, maybe he thinks Carl's alive still. That would be crazy if he lost like 2 years worth of memory, or like the last few years, and he remembers certain things in the beginning and then he was just, that was it. Maybe he thinks like Lori's alive. Like, it depends on how far back he lost his memory, if this even happens. Maybe he doesn't even remember who Negan is, I don't know how I would feel about that. Overall, I think the amnesia thing could be interesting, but it really depends on how they do it. Stories with amnesia and memory loss really, like, it turns out badly for the most part. It just depends on how they do it, like I said. But I would like something different to happen between Rick and Michonne, like whatever they do reunite in these movies, just something with their relationship. There's got to be something different. Maybe there's no amnesia, maybe none of that happens, and when they see each other for the first time and they reunite, they're just so happy, you know what I mean? But maybe because they spent 6 years apart, they're just different people and they clash a little bit more. Maybe there's something there. To bring it back to the show, though, Rick's story was a huge presence in season 9. And I mean, I know the Whisper arc was, but he's like this broad, like overall narrative of the season. And I think season 10 is going to be the same exact thing, especially because Michonne is leaving and crossing over to these movies. I mean, I know this is a prediction because there's no confirmation, and there won't be until we watch the episode that Michonne leaves. And by the way, I hope AMC doesn't market it as Michonne's final episode. I think with Rick, first of all, I had so many issues with what they did, and I think Andrew Lincoln even did, but I can kind of understand it because it is saying goodbye to a certain part of The Walking Dead. And I am happy that I was able to just brace for that and how I was going to feel, because I think if that episode just came out of nowhere and happened, I don't even know how I would feel. Like, part of me wants to know how all of us would feel if we just weren't expecting that moment to happen at all. Episode 4 ends with Rick getting that rebar like in his side, and we're like, whoa, what? And then we watch episode 5 thinking he's going to die because the episode is just set up like that. We're all on the edge of our seat, and then in the end he survives and gets taken away. There's a part of me that wishes that we would have been able to see that. Again, I like that I was able to brace for it and I was able to prepare for watching that episode. But yeah, hopefully they don't do the same thing with Michonne. But I do think Michonne is going to find out that Rick's alive. That really, like I said, it is a prediction, but it's kind of the only way for her story to end. Like, I think there's 2 ways for Michonne's story to end. Like, for one, a death, or 2, she's leaving to the Rick Grimes movies. she's not just going to leave and go somewhere else. Like she's kidnapped and she's going to start her own spin-off somewhere else, say like in Canada or something like that. That's not going to happen. That would just make no sense. And Danai Gurira likely won't want to do that. I think if she wants to be in these movies or really care to be a part of the Walking Dead universe, she wants to be a part of anything Andrew Lincoln related, because like Rick and Michonne really work well together. As an actor and an actress, they both really like each other. They both like working together. So I think it just makes sense, right? I think that's probably what's going to happen. And the article also said, a bunch of articles were saying when they released the news of Danai Gurira's departure, that she is expected to transition over to the Rick Grimes movies, and that was a part of the contract. So she is going to find out about Rick's survival. It really is as simple as that. But how? And also, how is this going to affect season 10 going forward? If you remember, about a week or two ago, Angela Kang said that Michonne's story is going to heavily affect the overall, or I guess a big narrative for season 10, which is her departure. And I do think it's because of Rick's survival. So how is it all going to happen? How is she going to depart? Again, I don't think she's going to die. I just don't see it. So how does she leave to the Rick Grimes movie? Well, it really does come to one of two options. One, she's kidnapped, much like Rick was, and she's just taken away somewhere. That I kind of find a little annoying. And two, she just finds out he's alive and decides to leave voluntarily, which I think is the smarter option. Because if that happens, I mean, first of all, it could go wrong if Michonne just leaves and doesn't tell anyone about it. Like she voluntarily leaves, but she doesn't tell Daryl, Judith, or any of them that Rick's alive. That's going to be super annoying. If Michonne finds out about Rick's survival, she needs to tell everybody. The revelation of Rick's survival is going to change the way our characters act. Because ever since Rick died, our characters have just been like kind of mopey. I mean, not really. I know they're grieving and there's a lot of sadness there, but there's just this element of heartache, you know, behind certain characters like Michonne, Daryl, Judith, or what have you. Whenever there's a scene with Michonne, you're always thinking of Rick and how much pain she's suffering, right? Or Daryl too. And it's even like amplified when you have Michonne and Daryl and Judith together, because you think of how much they lost. Whenever all three of them are together, it's just not really happy anymore. It's just purely sad. And I think they got to return to that point again. They have to get to the point where these characters can get over this and accept it and just move on. I think Daryl's probably the only character right now with like this sliver of hope that Rick's alive. Because like there was no body, so he could still be out there. Even though like logically it makes no sense, Daryl still has hope. I think every other character has accepted his death. And I know Michonne, like she's still wondering, like there was no body, so that doesn't mean anything. But I think Michonne, she's a little smarter than Daryl. Like Michonne's thinking like, well, where would he be then? It's been so many years. Like he should be back by now, right? Whereas with Daryl, he just kind of sticks to like the fact of it. Like there was no body. I searched everywhere around here. Logically, he couldn't have been washed up over here or whatnot. And as the years go on, that hope just goes more and more away. But all of this has been the narrative of the season, or of season 9 post Rick. Season 10 can create this hope again, where Rick is revealed to be alive. And from that point on, our characters are just going to be super cheerful. Judith is going to be happy as hell that her father's alive. That's going to change a lot to just what she's going to do for the future. Daryl too. He's just going to be really happy after he finds out. And I think this can overall change how season 10 is going to feel, because I don't know, I feel like this will just pump a lot of adrenaline into the season. And so what I want to talk about is what happens after the Whisperer War is over. Like for the next little part for season 10, like the revelation of him being alive, I think will be very, very exciting, and how our characters are going to react to that. I mean, it's going to be really, really awesome. I can't wait for later this year. But what happens after the Whisperer threat is dealt with? Because a character like Daryl, even Judith is a lot like Michonne and even Daryl, they're going to want to go check up on Michonne, right? Like once this threat is dealt with and they don't have to worry about it anymore, they're going to want to go check up on Michonne, because they're going to be like, well, she's been gone for a while now, so I want to go see where she is. And if she's okay, and like, did she find Rick? Now, this could be a good opportunity to introduce the Commonwealth, because it would serve as a distraction. Or maybe they play with the idea a little bit. Maybe our characters don't know where Michonne went. And so this radio tie-in gives our characters this hope that, well, maybe Rick is over there with the Commonwealth, so we got to go over there. And so the overall new narrative now of the Commonwealth, because they would change it from the comics, is that the reason they're going to the Commonwealth in the first place is because they think Rick and Michonne are over there, which it would turn out that it's not, obviously, but then we're just exploring a different villain arc at that point, right? Again, this would still keep Rick very much alive in the overall story. As for how it's going to play out in season 12 and 13, I don't know. And I think that's where the question raises, can they keep using Rick as a plot device? I think it's very important. Like, honestly, I think it's very important to have Rick around in some way because he was kind of the main. Well, Rick is The Walking Dead. It really is as simple as that. Like, there are certain characters in this world, or there's certain characters for certain television shows that when they're gone, it feels off. The Walking Dead is surprisingly keeping a lot of interest there. And I think it's because there are a lot of other characters that are just really awesome characters, like Michonne, Daryl, Judith, Negan, Alpha and Beta now. Like, there's a lot of other characters that are worth watching for. So they're benefiting from that. But overall, I'm just really excited for the future of The Walking Dead and what this next decade is going to mean because, I mean, Gimple said that 2020 is going to be very massive. I imagine the Rick Grimes movie's coming out then. We'll get some announcement on the Rick Grimes movie, I'm sure, in the next month or two. If not then likely at Comic-Con. A title, the cast, any of that. Like, something's got to happen with that. I don't know what's going to happen in season 11, 12, and 13, but all I know is that I think season 9 is the season where everyone is just very upset about Rick's death. But I think season 10, I mean, obviously early on, it's still going to be the same, but I think overall in season 10, people are going to be happy that he's alive. And I think that's going to be the revelation. And I think it'll make season 9 and 10 really, really fun, especially season 9, because when you like rewatch that season, it's going to be awesome to see our characters just that heartbroken over Rick's death because you're going to be thinking about the future and you're like, oh, just wait until they find out that he's actually alive. That's just exciting as hell, right? But anyways, post your thoughts down below. How do you think Rick's going to play a role in season 10? Hope you guys all enjoyed the video and thanks for watching.